Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why it is so hard to ignore nasty rumors about politicians, even when you know they might be false? Well, this new study might have a clue. Imagine you hear a rumor about a politician, something bad they supposedly did. Even if you later find out it wasn't true, a tiny part of that rumor can stick with you, making you feel a little bit worse about them. This is a real problem in politics, because it means lies can still hurt someone's reputation, even after they've been proven wrong. This study looked at a way to fight back against this. So what is this inoculation they're talking about? Think of it like a vaccine, but for your mind. Instead of giving you the actual disease of misinformation, it gives you a weak, harmless version of the trick used to spread that misinformation. The idea is that by seeing the trick first, you'll be better prepared to spot it and resist it when you encounter the real thing. This study tested this idea with political candidates. They wanted to see if training people to recognize manipulative messages, like using emotionally charged language, could make them less likely to be swayed by false accusations. And guess what? It seems to work. Let's dive into how they did it. The researchers gathered over 6,000 people online. They showed these participants profiles of fake political candidates. For some candidates, they were shown a negative accusation, like a social media post saying the candidate did something wrong. For other candidates, the accusation was immediately followed by a news report that clearly debunked it. And for a third group of candidates, there were no accusations. Before they saw these candidate profiles and accusations, some participants went through an inoculation intervention. This was either a video explaining how people use manipulative language in messages, or a fun game called Bad News, where players learn to create fake news stories themselves. The other half of the participants watched a neutral video, like one about freezer burn, or played the simple game like Tetris. After seeing the candidate information, participants rated how they felt about each candidate on a scale from 0 to 100, where 100 is super positive and 0 is super negative. They did this right after seeing the information and then again after a short delay, and in some cases, even after 2 days. Now for the exciting part, the results. When people didn't get the inoculation, a false accusation really tanked their rating of a candidate. Even when the accusation was later proven false, it still had a lasting negative effect, which is called the continued influence effect. This means that misinformation can stick around even after it is being corrected. But here is where the inoculation made a difference. People who had seen the inoculation intervention were less affected by the false accusations. Their ratings for those candidates didn't drop as much as for people who hadn't seen the inoculation. This effect was strongest when the accusation was unproven, meaning it was just a rumor. But there was also a small positive effect even when the accusation was proven false. The inoculation helped reduce that lingering negative feeling, that continued influence effect. What about later on? The researchers found that even after a short delay of a few minutes, the inoculation still helped to lessen the negative impact of uncorrected accusations. However, this effect seemed to fade over a longer period, like 2 days. This tells us that while inoculation is good at immediate protection, its long-term effects on our feelings about political candidates might need a little boost or reminder. They also looked at whether things like how much attention people paid to the intervention mattered. It seemed like those who paid closer attention did benefit a bit more from the inoculation, particularly when dealing with uncorrected accusations. But things like political leaning didn't seem to consistently change how well the inoculation worked. Interestingly, they also tested if the inoculation improved people's general ability to spot fake news headlines. The results showed a very small improvement, mainly in recognizing fake headlines. This suggests that the inoculation might make you a tiny bit better at spotting misinformation in general, but it is not a magic bullet for everything. They also tried to figure out why inoculation works by looking at memory. They thought that maybe inoculation makes emotional accusations less impactful and therefore less memorable. But surprisingly, the inoculation didn't make accusations less memorable. In fact, it seemed to make refutations, the debunking of accusations, less memorable. This was a bit of a puzzle and suggests the exact mechanisms are still being figured out. So, what is the big takeaway here? This study provides strong evidence that inoculation, like learning to spot manipulative language, can indeed make people more resistant to the negative impacts of false accusations against political figures. It is not about saying the accusation is true or false, but about being less swayed by the way the accusation is presented, especially when it is just a rumor. The researchers suggest that inoculation helps by reducing the strength of belief to behavior inferences. In simpler terms, instead of immediately deciding you don't like a candidate based on a rumor, inoculation helps you pause and think, reducing the chance that the rumor negatively impacts your overall opinion. This is really important because in today's world, misinformation can spread incredibly fast. Waiting for every accusation to be fact-checked is often too slow. These inoculation techniques offer a way to build a kind of mental defense system, making us all a little more resilient to the political mudslinging that can unfortunately be common. Now, it is not perfect. As we saw, the effects were strongest when accusations were unproven, and these longer-term effects are still being studied. The researchers themselves admit there was a lot of variation between the different studies they ran, and they don't completely understand why. This means we need more research to fine-tune these methods and understand who benefits most and for how long. But ultimately, the message is hopeful. By understanding the tricks that misinformation artists use, we can build our defenses and protect ourselves, and by extension, protect our democracies from being swayed by lies. It's about becoming a more critical and resilient consumer of information. What do you all think about this? Have you ever found yourself still feeling a certain way about someone after a rumor they were involved in was cleared up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more explorations into the fascinating world of psychology. We'll see you next time.